All right, so cool. So today I want to discuss with you how to write a speech, how to write in a way which is very compelling. Also, you don't forget, and also how to not to refer to notes. And one of the biggest problems with most people is the script. And then even if they're not looking at the script, 20 to 30% of the brain is in the script, and you can feel that, man, this is feeling too canned and too robotic. This is not right. Something is off. And it becomes boring because you can't express yourself. You're not fully present in the moment, right? How many of you like to learn that? Show of hands. Okay, great. So this is a technique I learned from one of my friend who is a stand-up comedian. And I was on a cruise ship. He invited me to a comedy cruise. He said, "Man, you should come. I'm on this comedy cruise." I took my family as well. And I saw him in the late night show. It was pretty epic. He was on point. Every joke was so beautifully delivered. Also, here in comedy, there are a lot of callbacks, right? You refer to the older joke to make your point again, and that brings more laughs. And every now and then, I noticed he was looking at his clock, watch. I was like, man, this guy is so epic. Like he got 40 minutes set, and every now and then he checks that whether he is on track or not. And that was pretty fascinating, right? He's looking at his watch. But then I found out there is a secret. And the secret was this: he had some notes. And but his notes are not like his writing words. His notes were symbols. So I'm going to share with you how this works, and then I'm going to demonstrate as well. Okay. And it works like this. If I'm telling you a story about, say, Facebook ads, that I run first time Facebook ad is in my business, and then a couple of people showed up, I was entering people in the room, and finally I was praying to God that, oh God, I hope only 5 to 10 people show up. And this was a terrifying experience, and finally people did show up. I was rambling, so I can create a story like that. To remember the story, what I will do is I will create a symbol, a Facebook symbol. This is my note. Okay, now I'm going to tell you another story. There was this one time I went with my family to the zoo on my daughter's birthday. And as we were roaming around, I saw one couple got a jerky, beef jerky in his hand, and he was feeding the lion. And pretty soon, what we realized is lion caught his finger. So I can go with this story, as I want. And for me, the reminder is zoo. I want to talk about the zoo story now. Okay. So my notes would be I will create a lion. Okay, believe it or not, it's lion, yeah. Next story that I want to tell is um, maybe anything. So similarly, what I'm trying to tell you here is this is how you document your note. This is how you make notes. This is how you make notes. Now, when you are holding a microphone, I'm holding a mic. What I will do is there is this place on my hand, which audience cannot see, but I can see I'm holding the mic. You see that? So I will create a Facebook symbol. I will create a lion image. Like that, I can have a couple of images here. So this tells me that I'm sharing these stories today. And this keeps me in check that I remember all my stuff. Okay. See, I can create symbol. I create big symbols. You can have smaller symbols. And when you're talking, you can make sure that you're sharing all those stories, right? And that keeps you in track. Another way, which my friend was doing, is he had like 50 minutes set. So he had a lot more stories, around 7 to 8. So he had more notes. So he used back of his hand as well. So he created 8 to 9 symbols over here. So every time he was looking at the watch, he was basically referring to his notes, that where I am in my storytelling, which are the stories I've told already. So this is a secret ninja tactic used by public professional speakers, also by stand-up comedians. It might look like, man, this guy is so mindful of time. He looks at time every like 10 minutes, so he's on track. But he's looking at the notes. Because as a speaker, you'll realize this. There is a clock at the back of the room that you can see. If you don't have, keep one. When I do my 4 hour workshop or full day workshop or 1 hour workshop, I keep a clock. Like I take my iPad, put it at the back of the room so I know what is the time. Okay. But this is purely for notes. But you will realize that as you go up in your journey, you tell stories so many times, you don't even need notes. But if you want notes, this is how you write notes. Now, what happens in Zoom scenario? In Zoom scenario, you make it on a sticky note, just paste it below the camera. Okay. But again, if you are kind of person who writes the chat GPT kind of speeches and give people no insight of your life or doesn't tell any story, this is not going to work. All right, today I'm going to talk about resilience. The definition of resilience is this. So the couple of ways you can you can practice resilience is A, B, C. Now I'm going to teach you 5 C's of resilience. I'm going to teach you 3 ways you can implement in your workplace. I'm going to teach you 7 points. You see how this is panning out? It's too many things. And this is how human brain thinks. One, two, three, many. Rest everything is many. So don't do that many, because the moment you do many, what's the point if people can't remember that information? What I've seen is when you tell stories, it becomes relatable and people remember that. People might forget your slide number 32 with pie diagram, but they will always remember how you make them feel and how you delivered a story. They can go home and tell their friends as well. Okay. All right. So let's see this in practice. So before this class started, I created my little note. So I have one little mic here, and around that, there are 5 little mics. So this is my symbol for proximity is power. Okay. There is one eagle here. That's for eagle story. And there is one little boy, and that is the school story. This is all the notes I have, okay, for maybe a 10-minute speech. So I'm going to just go through this very quickly, give you an idea that how it works. Okay. How many of you would like to have, okay, I put my notes right here in front of me. All right. By show of hands, how many of you would like to have a confidence that is absolutely unshakable? By show of hands. Fantastic, everyone. So I'm going to tell you something that you guys already know, and that is this. Proximity is power. Do me a favor, put in the chat, proximity is power. Do it right now. Fantastic. So we have heard this saying that proximity is power for almost 200-300 years now, but Harvard is known for their research. So in 2007, they wanted to test this theory that is it even possible in this day and age that proximity is power? Does it even hold true and relevant in these modern times? So they wanted to do this test. So what they did is they created a data sample size of 1,500 successful men and women around the world. And they said, you know what, we're going to try to find out what's the common pattern and trait among these people, or maybe a discipline that makes them successful. And guess what? They could not find any common pattern or trait among these people. And it was fascinating. However, all these people were very mindful of their circle of reference. That means when they made decisions, they knew at least 5 people they could refer to. So now this has changed from your average of 5 people you hang out with, 5 people you refer to. That's the direct reflection on your life. So similarly, if you really want to become public speaker and you have no speakers in your proximity, that is doing you a disservice. If you want to start a business and there's no businessman you know or take advice from, that's doing you a disservice. How many of you like to advance in your life? Show of hands. There are various kind of laws in nature, law of polarity, law of momentum. But I'm going to tell you one law that is called law of advancement. And this law is not documented in physics, biology, nowhere, in maths. But once I tell you, you'll relate with this law very easily. And all of you have experienced this. And law of advancement say this: before anything goes up, it must go down. Let me give you an example. Every seed has potential to become a tree. Would you agree? What must happen before this seed, this tiny seed, becomes a strong, massive tree? What must happen? Put in the chat. Come on, come on. Yeah. Water, realize the potential. We need to water it. Okay. All of that is true. So before this tiny little seed becomes a tree, first thing that must happen is you must dig a hole in the ground, put this seed down. And then you nurture this seed, and this little seed becomes a big, massive tree, right? And there is a root system that grows in, then the plant, the leaf system, stem system, everything grows, and this tree becomes a massive tree. Now, one day, what happens is two eagles were flying by, and they saw this massive tree. The lady eagle said to Mr. Eagle, "Honey, do you know I got an amazing surprise for you? Did I ever mention that? So, honey, you never told me you got a surprise for me. What is that?" I said, "Honey, we're going to have our kids soon. We need a brand new nest for them so we can raise our kids." Mr. Eagle says, "Honey, that's amazing. I love that. How do you like that tree over there? The massive big tree." So, "Yeah, sure. I think that'll be great home for our little eaglets." And they make a big nest. And now Mrs. Eagle lays some eggs, and she starts to hatch them. And pretty soon what you realize is little eaglets pop out of these little eggs. Okay. Now mama eagle flies, daddy eagle flies, and goes out, get foods to these little eaglets and feed them on a daily basis. Now they start to grow up, and all the eaglets are really excited. They say, "Mama, Mama, we want to fly like you. Can you teach us how to fly?" And Mama Eagle says, "No, baby, you're not ready yet. We're going to give you a little time. Okay. When you're ready, Mama will let you know." And these eaglets every single day, "Mama, Mama, let's go for a flight. Let's go for a flight." And then one day, Mama Eagle says, "All right, you guys are ready for a flight. I'm going to take the eldest one." So she asks the eldest eaglet to hop on her back. Now this eaglet hops on Mama's back, and Mama starts to fly. And she goes higher up in the air. Okay. And little eaglet is going at the back. "Higher, higher, I want to go higher." And mommy is going woof, 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 higher in the air, right? What Mama Eagle does, which she did not mention to little eaglet, she just flips over. And when she flips over, little eaglet falls down. "Woof, woof, Mama, Mama, this is crazy. Don't leave me like that." Because the wings are not very strong. And before little eaglet hits the ground, Mama Eagle comes and catches these eagles and goes up in the air. I said, "Mommy, don't you ever do that. It's not right. Don't do that. I'm gonna die. I don't want to fly. I don't want to fly." Mama Eagle is absolutely ruthless. And this is what she does. She goes up and drops the baby eagle again and does it again and again. Now they come home. All other baby eaglets, "How's the flight? Did you enjoy? Did you have fun?" And this little eaglet says, was absolutely terrified, said, "Mama is crazy, man. Don't get on her back. She's absolutely crazy. She's going to take you up in the air and she's going to drop you. It's not a great experience." And next day, Mama does the same thing again, over and over again. And then what you realize is the eaglet fall down, the wind catches the wind, and Little eaglets start to fly. And the song comes out. I'm unstoppable. I'm a Porsche with no brakes. I'm invincible. I win every single day. Eagles learn to fly by falling down. A plane takes off. Before the plane takes off, flaps of the wings must go down before it takes off. If you want to make a building, before the building goes up, you need to dig holes in the ground to lay down the foundations. If you want to become a confident speaker and you don't want to fail, you got to be absolutely delusional. Before you start a business, your bank balance needs to go down in terms of investment before you make sales and ROI. Some of you are saying, oh no, I'm in job. You invested a lot of money and time in the schooling system to get a job today. So if you want to become that charismatic speaker, you got to be willing to fail. Get yourself coach and mentor. Fail as many times as possible if you want to fly high. Do all human beings achieve 100% of potential? No. And here's the reason. We have choices. 100% of the eagles learn how to fly. Would you agree? None of them become chickens, even if they want to. 100% of eagles learn how to fly. But do 100% of human beings live to their 100% potential? No, because we have choices. We are not afraid of falling. We are afraid of the impact of falling. None of you are afraid of speaking, by the way. You can speak. You speak all day long. But you might be afraid of the impact when you speak and what happens, that negative comment or my aunt judges me. You're afraid of that. So learn to fly. Before anything goes up, it must go down. That's the law of advancement. Be willing to fail. Now, the third thing that I want to teach you today is called clarity of message. Once you have understood this part, that I got to be willing to fail, I got to be willing to put in the work to actually succeed and fly, there's something called clarity of message. Let me tell you a story. 7 years back, I got my first speaking engagement. This was at a school. And I was supposed to address 100 people on career choices and resilience. And during that time, I was working at the same time I was teaching public speaking. So I thought, man, this should be a piece of cake. I was actually learning about public speaking as well. And so I thought this would be a piece of cake. I'm already a professional. And I also, I know about resilience quite a lot. So my strategy was for next 1 hour, I'm going to get on stage. I'm going to answer the questions. That was my entire strategy. So as I get to the venue, what I realized is people get butterflies, but I was getting pigeons in my tummy. I was about to get on stage and lay some eggs. That was my story. But then the vice principal comes to me and says, Sagar, I got very good news for you. You gotta be absolutely fascinated by this news. I said, okay, tell me. At this point in time, nothing is going to help me, but yeah, tell me anyways. He said, you know what? We don't have 100 people today. We have 700 people. I was like, that makes me feel more sick now. I'm not ready for this. Should I just call sick? I was thinking in my brain, but eventually I get on stage. And one of those moments where the speaker gets on stage and speaker is nervous and people are praying for him that, oh God, you can do it. You got this. That was my situation. I asked them, okay, you guys have any question for me? And none of them asked me a question, not even a sympathy question. So at this point in time, I was looking at the clock and I start to talk about something. 15 minutes in, I'm done talking. And then I look at the clock, man, 45 minutes to go. What do I talk about? So during those times, I attended a seminar by Tony Robbins, UPW, Unleash Power Within. I also watched a couple of YouTube videos, some motivational stuff. So I started to do for some time this massive verbal vomit. Whatever comes to my mind, I start to spit it out. And I look at the clock, man, 30 more minutes to go. I was like, my tank is empty now. I have nothing. So I thank my audience. I come off, and then this principal comes to me running. And she said in little words, says this, Sagar, what was that? We're not paying for that shit. Forget about the money. What it did to my self-confidence, it like shattered it. In very little words, this is what she said. Well, that was not quite what we expected, but we'll make sure we never book you again and we don't pay for that. So I was sitting in the Uber, I was coming home, and I was thinking to myself, I'm not good enough. All these limiting beliefs came on parade. Who the hell you were thinking you're going to get on stage and talk to people? What makes you so special? But then I went through the trainings, etc. What I realized is from this particular incident, I had two biggest lessons of my life. First, no matter how big expert you are, if you can't communicate your thoughts and ideas, if your technical skill is 10 on 10, your ability to communicate is 1, people see you as 1, not as 10. You wish they could, but they don't. So you're only as good as you communicate. Second thing that I learned from that experience is this. If you are invited to speak on a stage and you don't know what you're going to share with them, you have no clarity of message, it's disrespect to your audience. That means people make time to come and listen to you, and you are not ready. That's a disrespect. You wasted their time and your time. You got to have something that you can share with your audience, some stories. In fact, I'll go this far to say this, yeah? My stories are not mine to own. They're there to inspire people. It'll be very selfish of me if I just kept it to myself. Imagine the greatest invention on this planet if they were never shared. How the life would be today. Very different. So if you want to have the real confidence, 3 things that I would sum it up with. Get yourself in the right proximity. Proximity is power. Second thing, be willing to fail, because the more you fail, the more you're going to succeed. It's not something that you have to avoid, but you have to embrace it to get to the success. And third thing that I would say is clarity of message. When you get on stage, think of it as an honor. What a privilege it is. I get to share my stories with people, not I have to. That's a completely different mindset. Get clarity on the message. Let's go back to the notes. What I shared with you today. First thing was proximity is power. So I had one mic, and then I create 5 little mics. Because I'm a speaker, I train other speakers how to speak with confidence. So proximity, this is me. I think of this as other people, okay? Then I tell you the law of advancement. And I told you the eagle story, right? So I created an eagle. Okay, that's my second story. Now you look at this schoolboy with a tie. That's the third story that I share with you. And that was clarity of message. So if you want to prepare a speech, you want to be absolutely present in the moment, this is how you prepare notes. Always reverse engineer your talk. First, you think that what are 3 key takeaways that I want to have for my audience. But because if I'm going to give them ChatGPT script, I'm going to give them like 50-step plan, they're not going to remember that. What's the point of that? What is the point me rambling for 2 hours or 1 hour when they can't even remember one thing? Because this is how human brain thinks, 1, 2, 3, and then many, right? So reverse engineer your talk, 3 talking points, 3 solid outcomes, 3 things that I want my people to remember. Then what are the stories or research, something that I can share to make my point? Like I share a concept, the proximity is power, and then I did a little rambling on that, data, research, etc. But I told it in form of stories, right? So what is the story I need to tell to make my point? Now, what you have to do is before you actually deliver your speech, you have to practice a little bit. And this is the process I want you to follow. If you just write down your speech and memorize, it'll not flow like this. It'll be completely off. And this is the practice that I want you to follow. Once you have thought of stories, go to voice memo app. In Apple, there's a voice memo app. In Samsung, I don't know what it is. You press record and you talk as if you are talking to a family or friend. How would you talk to them? It won't be like, today I would like to tell you about 3 stories from my life. I wouldn't talk like that to my friend and say, man, dude, what's wrong with you, right? So I would talk normally. I'm going to tell you 3 stories. So story number 1 is this. So my rate of speech, the way I speak will be very natural, very normal. So I practice my speech on voice memo app. And then if I want to, I can document it on a piece of paper. And what I would recommend for all my students is, if you don't have your book of stories, make one. Make one. It's called Book of Stories. Anytime you prepare a speech, write it down here. First, you record it and then write it down. And the next time when I have to listen to my speech, I just go to the audio. I don't usually refer to the notes because this is more conversational. So when you first record and then write down, is going to be congruent. The way we speak and the way we write is not same. There's a cognitive dissonance. And that is why you have to first record it. You'll never write down. Do you know what I mean? Do you guys get me? By show of hands? You won't write those kind of things in your notes. But when you speak and then you write down, you will. And that's how your speech has to be. So what I would do is, anytime I have to revise my notes, I would just listen to my notes. I don't read because I'm not pretty good with that. Okay. So I like to listen. Finally, all you got to do is make some notes like this on your hand, on back of your hand, or stick a note if you're online, and keep it just below the camera, and that'll keep you on track. And it will sound more natural, by the way. You can tell if somebody just wrote a script and they memorize it, because there's so much of cognitive load that is happening in their brain. They're not fully present in the moment. So thinking is the function of your conscious brain. Body language is the function of your subconscious brain, and subconscious brain is very honest. This is the most honest brain. Like, if you're not feeling it and you're just trying to fake it, people will see that through, that this guy is trying too hard. Your non-verbal body, it leaves clues with people. Okay. So 17th millisecond, if you have a micro expression, people make note of that. You might not know this information, but people make note of that. If something crosses their eyes and they see that, man, something is off. We get this gut feel, right? That's what it is, observing the nonverbals, because that's the most honest form of communication. And people who use their bodies more, we tend to believe them more. Why? Because they're telling the truth. People who lie don't use their bodies much. If I were to tell a lie to my boss that why I was late for office, I would say, boss, you know what, too much of traffic. And then I missed the right turn over there. And then it took me to a completely different place. And there was an accident. So I'll make these stories up. I'm fully in my head. When I'm fully in my head, what happens? I'm not very expressive. But if I were to tell an incident to a police officer that I saw a fire in that building, and what I noticed is who's the guy who was running, what he looked like. If I were to express that, I wouldn't be, I saw a man who was running. No, I'll be like, I know there was this guy in blue suit. I saw him coming in the back of the room. He also had a stick in his hand with fire. I saw him running with petrol cans, and he was dark. He had the tattoo over here. I'll be more expressive. Why? I want to give him as much information as possible so that they can catch him. Do you realize the intentions? I want to give him more clues. So what I will do is I'll step into my powers. I'll be more honest. I'll do more gestures. So I'm absolutely clear. Like, if my friend is kidnapped, when I give information to police officer, it won't be like, I would like to tell you a little bit about how this gang. No, you are a different person. You're a completely different person. So use your body and feel it. And that will only happen by being fully present in the moment. So now what I'm telling you will not come to effect immediately. Sometime you'll go and then your mind goes blank. But hold on, try to go and reach for that thought. It might take a little time, but you will eventually get it. Once you get it, that's called anchor. You anchor that in. You might forget anything but that. And then maybe you go, oh man, that's what it was. If you can't remember at all, and you'll place anchor on that. And you'll realize is doing it over and over again will shrink the time. It'll shrink the time. It'll come to you instantly. Like today, if Vivek is able to do on the spot impromptu because he has done it so many times that it's now natural, he can search his brain very quickly and come up with something. So it's just a matter of time how we shrink this time. It might be 1 minute, then 30 seconds, then like 1 second. And biggest problem is this: there is a big disconnect, the way we think and the way we talk. There's a disconnect. We think of 450 words a minute. We think that fast. A mouth can speak 150 words a minute, max, like if you're Eminem kind of rapper. But for normal people, 100, 120, those are the amount of words that we speak. So what most people do is they think and then they in their head and then they talk and then they think and then they talk, and there is a bit of time delay in that, and there's no time to get into the body language part of it, the expression part of it. But if you just feel, step into that power and tell the stories like this, you don't need to remember the sentences. Only if you're telling stories you can step into your power. Why? It requires no extra thinking. This is your story. You know every little details. Even if you don't have every sentence scripted, guess what? Even if you miss one sentence, you're not going to be fumbling. You will step into your powers. You'll make it up. You will do improv. Okay? That's why you need to rely on stories. And guess what? People remember stories at the end of the day. That's what they remember. So lean into that. So now, do you know how to write a speech? By show of hands. Do you understand the importance of stories? Show of hands. Okay, great. Any question on this topic? You can unmute yourself. What we just talked about.
Sagar, just out of curiosity, the when you're talking about a topic
Mm-hmm.
which does not mean that you have a story to talk about, like you have to sound natural at the same time too, right? You're just trying to present something which you have
Example.
not experienced, so that
Give me
may
example.
not be your true story that will come from you within, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different matter when you're presenting what you do at work. Let's say you're making a presentation that will come from you, and you will know a lot of stories that will sound natural. But what if you're not actually not aware of that topic, and you have to just talk about it? It's not a story that you have to resonate, that you remember. To your point, that it's something that you are the one telling your story that sound natural, but a lot of times you don't have that story.
So you say you don't have stories?
So what I mean is, you mentioned that you have to reverse engineer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You build the story, right? Sometimes it is like you put me on the spot. And you wanted my thoughts on something, yet may not have a story, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I'll still think, right?
Yeah.
It may not be my story, maybe someone else's story, but I'll try to recall.
Yeah.
So it may not sound natural to what to do about that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I get it. So if you're put on the spot, you don't have a story, you don't know what to do. So in that case, what should we do, right? So one thing that I will tell you is in this program, every week you'll present a speech and you will document those stories. Okay. Most people, 99% of people on this planet never document their stories. They have stories. Something happened in their life because of which they learned something, but they haven't actually taken out time to document it. So when they are put on the spot, they have nothing to talk about. What? But people who are professional speakers, who get paid to speak, public speaker professionals, we have a book of stories. So I have so much of content in here, I can talk for 4 days. I tell you story after story. So very quickly, what I do is I pick one story to make my point. So we all have stories. It's just that we haven't documented. That's why we scramble. And it might feel a little bizarre when you see these thought leaders, right? And you admire them. And they're doing this podcast, somebody asks them a question, and on the spot, they pick up something and start telling it with a point. And it feels like, man, this is so magical. But what people don't see is that they have practiced it many times. They have documented. They have used that reference many times. It's in a familiar territory and it sounds so magical. Most of the speakers talk about the same thing over and over again. If you listen to multiple podcasts, say, man, this guy almost talk about the same thing, but in a little different thing, right? So they're not struggling with the content. Content is there. They have done it so many times, written so many stories. You just need to pick one and what makes sense in that particular scenario.
Got it. Thank you. That
So
makes sense. And it's
you
also
really
about
need,
practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about practice. It's all about being aware. 99% of people will never do this, what I'm telling you. This is the tool of public and professional speakers. Stories. Yeah. Like if you look at Steve Jobs, for example, right? When he did Apple launch his computer or iPod, he would tell stories. You never see him talking about how many gigs, how many megapixel. I mean, he wouldn't go to the geekery part of it, the numbers, and that's the most tech thing. But you say, hey, today I'm going to share with you three things. First one is it can take amazing pictures and look at the quality that everybody understand. Like when they launch iPod, now you have 1,000 songs in your pocket. Are you guys excited? This little thing has 1,000 songs. How easy it is to understand. Like if they can talk about the nano chip, and for most people, it's like technobabble, technobabble. But he made it so simple, easy to understand. Why do we like Warren Buffett? He tells story in so simple, compelling way. Everybody understand. If even if you show it to 5-year-old kids, they'll understand it. Or fifth grade kids, right? He tells that my best investment was in Coca-Cola. I was growing up with Coca-Cola. I saw these caps all over the place. I figured out that people must like it. My best investment was I bought this candy business, and only thing that I wanted control over was the the pricing part. And I increased the prices every single time I did market research. So he tells it in story format. However, he can talk about the CAGR, the growth quarter, and people tune out. So is that ability to make data sexy. If you want to tell the fine print, etc., give them Excel sheet, give them PDF, tell them you can go to the website, go and explore it. Okay, that's how you can yeah, communicate in stories to be more powerful because your time on stage is very limited, by the way. It's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever it is, right? It's so you can't any which ways cover every little detail. Does that answer your question? All right.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
Any other question on this topic? Anyone? Either I did a very good job explaining this or did a very terrible job that nobody got it. Okay, cool. Was
In
this?
terms of
Yep.
time, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of time, so
Mm.
you just kind of time your stories to a point to where if you have a 45-minute speech,
Mm-hmm.
you tell
So
three
yeah,
stories.
this is what I would recommend, Priscilla. So if you have a 45-minute speech with my advanced level students, I do this, and that is we first reverse engineer. That's the first thing that we do. And max in 45-minute talk, I would put 5 stories, not more than that, because again, it's a remembering issue, right? So our stories, we can have variation of it. We can have like we have the 20-minute version, 5-minute version. Even I can tell the essence of it in 1 minute or maybe 30 seconds as well. What is the main thought? So similarly, you have to decide that which is the most impactful element in my presentation. I'll spend more time on that. Maybe if you're doing a sales presentation, so in 4 hour presentation, 1 hour is purely for sales. So 1 hour you got to be hounding people on knocking that internal domino that why they should take action, and this will help them to move forward in their life, right? So you chunk it, do chunking. 1 hour I'm going to do Q&A. 2 hours I'm going to present content. 1 hour I'm going to do the sales activity. So you have broad picture in front of you, or maybe it's 40 minutes. So first, so you have an iPad in front of you where you can see the time, and you make a mental map. First 10 minutes I'm going to talk about this particular thing. Next 20 minutes, I'm going to share these two pieces of content. Last 15 minutes, I'm going to give them call to action. So once you have that figured out, you can wrap up stories fast. It's not that you have to go, you have to explain the grandma's curtain drape, the color and glitters. You can skip that part. You can go to the Goldilocks story straight away, that the three bowl of porridge, etc. So like that, you can compress or you can expand as per the need. But before you actually get to the venue, you have to have absolute clarity then how many minutes where I'm going to spend, which story is going to take most of my time, and this is the ballpark time. So if you have that part clear, then it becomes really easy. And any which ways, you got to have a timer. Like I wouldn't recommend anyone who's doing a professional talk not to have a timer. I mean, have a little timer. It's cheap, but it keeps you on track. Imagine this, right? You want to influence people to take action, and you go on for 45 minutes just telling stories because you're lost in the moment, and you have no time to pitch people or tell them, hey, what is the main thing that will actually help you? That wouldn't serve you. So that's why you need a clock, and that's your best buddy. And chunking. Cool. Awesome. Very good question.